make up child soldiers, indentured slavery. And when we say indentured slavery, we're talking about agricultural slavery, children who've been taken, either kidnapped or been sold, sometimes by their own families, and sold in the fishing industry, diamond industry, platinum, cobalt, and the list goes on. And I have put myself in the most insane situations on the ground, and I've had team members that have been killed, drivers that have been killed, and seen horrific acts of genocide in South Sudan, horrific acts of genocide committed by Boko Haram in northern Nigeria. And one would ask, why would I do that? Why would I continue? And my life changed 5 years ago. And I'll give you a couple of examples, because how the system is so broken. I was introduced, I was actually in Ghana 5 years ago, and I was doing close protection or executive protection for a very wealthy family from Sweden. And they were building infrastructure from East to West Africa. Clean water, shelters, schools, etc. And we came upon a shelter where 15 to 20 children had just been rescued from child slavery. Some as young as 5 to ages to 15. Some of them had been enslaved for more than 6, 7, 8 years. And here I am doing a job to protect these philanthropists. And as I looked at these children, you could see the fear, the trepidation on their faces. And I can see the faces today. And when I looked into their eyes, their eyes looked like sharks' eyes. It was callous and cold, and you could just, the fear exuded. And I started tearing. I had to turn away, because if I continued to look, I would have started crying. And here I'm supposed to be doing this job of, bodyguarding. And so from that point, I wanted to know how I could get involved. And one thing led to another. Meeting people here at the UN, different NGOs throughout the African continent. And so I formed my own We Can Save Children, not to be confused with Save the Children. And it took me all around the world, from Southeast Asia to the Middle East, from East to West Africa. And the one thing I have found, that the biggest problem is the systemic problem from the top of the food chain, meaning the corruption in the government. And it flows all the way down to local police forces or local security forces. And there's no cohesiveness. And if there is, then it's, who can pay this and who can pay that. And if you can't, then the children, forget about the children. They're just collateral damage. They're just cannon fodder. And one experience, well, there are many, but one experience I'll tell you was in Ghana. And we were in a fishing village called Senya, which is in the coastal village of a town of about 40,000 people. And it's rife for child trafficking. The child traffickers come down from the north, from Lake Volta. Lake Volta is one of the largest man-made lakes in the world. It was built by US engineers in the 60s. And the children are used in the fishing industry and are taken, and there are, at any one time, 25,000 children working on this lake to get the fish. And we had a mission in place. We knew who the slave masters, traffickers were. The government knew we were going to do this. The actual international news was there. Therapists, doctors, nurses, you name it, everyone was in place. And at the 11th hour, the Ministry of Interior called us and said, you have to cease and desist, otherwise you will all be arrested. And it just so happened at that time there was a change in government going on. So if we did this, and obviously we would be successful, is that it would look like the government are doing nothing to stem the tide of the trafficking that's going on in Ghana. And this, stories like that happened in many other places. They happen in Uganda, they happen in South Sudan, they happen in Ivory Coast, they happen in Nigeria. And so we basically had to, just like us sitting around and watching children get bought and sold, I'm being told to leave. How much time do I have?
5 seconds.
5 seconds.